Hello YouTube. I wanted to make another video that follows up explicitly on the ACE arsenal. There has been some further questions and comments, and there's been a number of updates to ACE that somewhat alters how the ACE arsenal works since I made the last video. So let's get right into it. First of all, you have to be aware that when you have an object inside your ACE editor, or your Eden editor, you have two forms of storage. One is the default container object will actually have its own equipment storage section, which has a value, that contains objects inside of it, and then you can clear that object. Additionally, you have a section down here called Object ACE Arsenal. When you have the ACE Arsenal, the ACE module loaded that handles ACE Arsenal, I think it's in common, where you can then search through and add various things. Let's search through and get the HK-121 weapon, which is here. We'll get that one, and then we will get some appropriate ammunition for it, which would be in here. Let's see, 7.62, and I believe it's this one here, so we will get that box. So that is what we have, and then we can remove that and go here, and you can see that they show up. And then when we're inside the game, and let me put down a person, rifleman unarmed, hit play scenario, we can find that inside this object we have both the standard inventory, which is empty, and then our ACE inventory, which will have the weapon itself. And apparently I picked the wrong ammunition type. So that's what this is. So with the understanding that we are actually dealing with effectively two different types of weapons, we want to make sure that we understand exactly what those differences are. Probably the biggest difference that you're going to encounter is that the ACE arsenal is contained within a function that works off of an array of arrays, whereas the BIS equipment storage is somewhat similar, but when you're actually trying to use it as an arsenal, what you're actually getting is a series, effectively, for loadouts, a series of commands that adds objects to a container storage. Whether it's a vest, a uniform, a backpack, that's functionally how it works. So to kind of further hammer that home, we're going to want to make sure that we understand when you're manipulating a loadout, and let's give a couple more here and here, that we have two distinct arsenals because of that, and they function differently. The standard Bohemian Interactive arsenal contains your hide, random, get a random loadout, export, save. You can save something to its own directory, and when you export it, you will find that it is a, here we go, logic entity. You will find that it is, once again, this series of commands. You have comments in them, and it effectively removes weapons, items, all assigned items, vest, uniforms. It strips them down, and then it adds the uniforms, items inside the uniforms, a vest, helmet, goggles, any weapons that they might have. And when you have multiple objects, it actually does a little bit of manipulation. For I from 1 to 2, do this, add to uniform, whatever the class name is. That's effectively how it works. When you have a ACE arsenal export, which is down here, you have something completely different. You have instead an array of arrays. And inside this array of arrays, you're actually going to find some significantly useful objects. I'll do it to this guy because it is a little bit more detailed. Or maybe not. Let me get an actual guy. There. Export. You will see that it looks complicated, and this is, in my original video, this is what I had people trying to find inside the mission SQM, which is to do some regular expression manipulation, get this array of arrays, and convert that into a simple array by removing extraneous square brackets and making sure that you're not having double quotes, among other things. And while that did work, it is labor intensive, and there is a better way. Breaking down this complicated array, if you're curious, this is a separate storage format than what is used inside Mission SQM by the game itself. Instead, what we see here is that we have a predicated set of arrays for an assigned weapon that contain the weapon itself and the accessories that are stored on that weapon, including the optic, the pointer, a suppressor. There was a fourth one for the underbarrel launcher, but it's not on this particular gun. And then we have the magazine, the number of bullets in the magazine, cartridges. So a mission creator might say somebody only has like 2 rounds of ammunition left or something like that. Same thing with a handgun. And notice that we have here, once again, we declare what the uniform is, and then we put things inside the uniform, whether it's a first aid kit, extra magazines, the number of magazines that are in there, and then how much ammunition is inside each magazine. So that's, fairly neat if you want to super customize that. But even then, this is, one, not directly importable unless you're using the ACE arsenal, and two, for our purposes, when we're making an arsenal to put inside here, using the this, something like that, close it, and then call ACE arsenal function init box. When we have something like this to give ourselves ACE bananas, we're also going to want to include anything else as a simple class name array, meaning that it doesn't have any kind of crazy details for what is in what particular uniform, because it doesn't apply. This is a generic storage box. If you like, you can, inside here, you can use the search tool, manually add whatever you like. In fact, I'll add a spare barrel, so we'll do that, spare barrel. Okay, and once we have that, we see it in here, we want to export that, and then we go up in here, and we can just directly replace our array with that, and you can see it's a simple array. It has the gun, it has the ammunition, and it has a spare barrel. This initialization field takes place very early in the mission loading sequence. This is after the game has actually already started, though, on mission start. So we want to clear this to make sure that there is not going to be a conflict. Now, when we go inside the game, we will see that we now have those items inside our arsenal. There is our weapon. I still did not pick the correct ammunition for it, so rip. You can see we have our spare barrel there as well. So that is pretty much how that works. Fairly straightforward. But how do we do that for items? Well, if you've been paying attention to what's been popping up on the screen, you can see that we have a little bit of code that has a variety of things available to it. And if we put down a bunch of objects here, and we want to use that bit of code to search for each person, each unit inside this mission, and there's nothing else in here, and get their loadout, convert that loadout into a simple array, and then paste that simple array in here, well, we can do that programmatically. Best way to do that is exactly with this little script. This is published on the ACE Arsenal framework, and I will include a link to that specific bit of code. However, I want to illustrate it here to tell people how it works, as well as to give a little bit of a broader understanding to it. It creates a private variable and gets the loadout of each of all units, and then it converts that loadout, which is a array of arrays, into a string. It then uses the command called split string to remove these blank areas and then joins them using a comma. It then parses the array by taking this string here, enclosing it into square brackets, and then it scans the array looking for duplicates and then removes them. It then copies the resulting string from here into the clipboard. That's effectively the entire thing it does. And when you do that, we can hit local array, we go in here and suddenly we can replace this with that, which has no duplicates in it, contains all of the gear that is in these units, we can now remove, and allows them inside the arsenal using the ACE Arsenal, good old ACE Arsenal function init box. And you can see that this is a very fast and easy way to get all the gear that you want. And you can mix and match and do whatever you like. It's pretty handy. So by all means, go ahead and use it. You can see that it because these are using loadouts from the game itself, you don't have to worry too much about missing accessories. If you want to add accessories to this, doing so is straightforward. For example, if there's a weapon or some piece of gear that is not available or on a unit, then what you can do is just add the class name in there. And the easiest way to do that is go in here, find the object that you want, let's say a bipod, and then export that, and you will get a little array, and it looks like that has it. Then all you need to do is replace that with a little comma, the square brackets back to back with a little comma, and suddenly you have now added that item to the game. But remember, trap for young players, and what I just did, is that this takes place before this, so you want to make sure that this is clear and empty before you actually publish your mission. You be sure that that happens. Then when you go into the arsenal, you will find that when you equip your gun, let's say this, you'll find that you now have the ability to put on a bipod, which apparently I can't do on these weapons. But that is effectively how it works. And you can just add those strings. You can also just directly, manipulate whatever you want. There's nothing stopping you from just directly putting in a class name and being able to manipulate the arsenal in that way. It may seem a little bit counterintuitive to just rely on text rather than the built-in ACE Arsenal, and the reason for that being is that this works if you kind of know what you want and are familiar with it, and you even get the class names when you mouse hover over the individual objects. But for some people, especially ones that are like time sensitive, the fastest way that I've seen to be able to do that is to say, I want my players to be a recon squad, of that, and what I want to do is get all of the loadouts for that, so local exec, and then I want to replace that with a bunch of civvies. Here, there's my player, okay, with no gear whatsoever. And then in here, I'll just go ahead and put all the gear from those units. And you can see that that is a very fast way to develop an arsenal and then have players spawn as something and be able to gear up as they see fit, pretty much. So it is it's just kind of a faster way to do that. Another very quick way, which I illustrated in the previous video, is to also develop, saved default loadouts. For example, if you wanted this gunner guy and you wanted to give that guy a loadout, let's go ahead. Let's have a recon person. Let's see here, recon squad. Okay, this guy. If you wanted to have this guy here be a kind of a unit that has the look that you want the players to have with all the gear, what you can do is go to My Loadouts, My Loadouts, go to Default Loadouts, give it a name, so Recon Guy, save that. It's saved directly into the mission, and even when these units are gone, as long as that gear is physically inside this arsenal, inside this array, then when you play that mission, that default loadout is available. So a player will spawn, go to Interactions, Arsenal, go to Loadouts, go to Default Loadouts, and suddenly they can immediately be the recon guy, have all the gear that you pre-selected, and then meets a thematic or restricted gear situation that you want in your particular game. at this point, you now have a spawn player that instantly goes to an arsenal that can get all the gear that they need, that you have stipulated, that fits a mission, fits a theme, fits a profile, and they can get on with the mission within a couple minutes. There's none of this screwing around, picking and choosing. Of course, you can do that, which is the entire point why you put down the squad to begin with, so that way they can kind of customize their gear, But they can use the ACE arsenal as a customizing feature, with the default arsenals being the quick way to get set up, and the ACE arsenal is to kind of stick on a few added features on top of that, essentially. So it gives you a customizable default loadout very quickly with very minimal fuss, and you don't have to do any kind of crazy regular expression stuff as I illustrated in the first game. It's also worth noting that this is portable, meaning that if you save this as a composition, temp, okay, delete that, you don't need it, whatever, and then you start a new mission, here's on Tanoa, and you're saying, like, oh, I remember an arsenal in a mission that I made a while ago, and I saved it as a composition, and it was really cool and had everything in there, and I just need to, remove, all of something, whatever it is. Like, I don't want anybody to have demolition charges, so we'll get rid of all of this mine stuff. So all that goes away, and we don't need the mine detector. Let's see here. We don't need the defusal kit or the clacker, and we don't want the bounding mine, and we don't need that either. So suddenly we now have a very quickly put customized loadout, and then we just put down our snazzy player character. And without any further playing around or mission or going outside the game or doing anything, suddenly we have all of our stuff in there, and the only thing that isn't saved is default loadouts, because those are with the mission SQM and not the object itself. So that is the only restriction. But you can see that I can still, load up all of my stuff, and it's all there. So very convenient, very handy, very portable. Don't forget that portability, that string that is inside this, can be copied, pasted, removed, put into something else. Like put it in here, whatever. Put it into Discord, put it into Skype, put it into TeamSpeak, Raid Call. Do people still use IRC or AOL chat? You can send that string to anybody, and all they have to do is go into the editor and pop that into the initializing line of some object, and they have access to the arsenal that you put. Very easy, very straightforward. So hopefully that makes your mission creation a bit easier, a bit faster, a bit more portable. And if you have any comments or questions, please by all means send me a message here in the video as a video response, and let me know if you kind of want to see more technical editing videos, less on mission design and more on the actual technical aspects to get something neato in your game. Thank you. Bye.